Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome once again to the BTSC, that's Behind the Steel Curtain, the family of podcasts. As we welcome you to our Monday show, it's not the Steeler Hangover because we're not in season. It's the Steeler Q&A where you get a chance to ask questions about the Steelers, and we ask them to you as well. Hello, once again, my name is Brian Anthony Davis, along with Tony Defio, my good friend and my colleague for a few years now. Tony, what is going on, man?
I am just enjoying this Monday. It's a beautiful day. It's not a cloud in the sky. I hope everybody's has a chance to get out and go for a walk or something later or earlier today. How are you?
You walk a lot, Tony, right?
I'd say about 30 miles a week now.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. For me, I need to walk more, and I definitely want to walk more. So, with the dogs, my dogs are lazy too, and they're tiny. I have tiny little dogs, little dachshunds, little ankle biters, but they have little legs. So they're like, man, we're not walking. So they'll go a little bit and they were like, we're done. And I've got little legs. So I'm usually done after a little bit, but I got to get back out there because health first. That's the most important thing. Doing well, Tony. It's a beautiful day here in Maryland as well. And I got to tell you, it was in the 70s, so it's not swimming weather, even though I'm not going to be swimming anyways. But it just feels nice, just a cool breeze. It's a spring day,
yeah,
and just glad to be here. So seeing some good friends in the live chat already. We've got Show 91, Flips in here, Odessa, Jared Devil. Good to see y'all. We're going to get a lot of more people in, and probably going to talk about a controversial subject for Steeler Nation, where usually I'm the guy that I agree with everybody. People aren't going to like my take on this one. That's not a hater thing. It's actually a homer thing, and you guys are going to be the haters, even though this is not the homer and the hater. Good to see Portna, Brighton, Cree, Felicia is in here too as well. So glad to see y'all, and it's a fantastic day in Steeler Nation. I am just glad to be here and talk about my favorite thing in the world, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, remember, BTSC, it's not just podcast. It is the website, the blog site. So many articles every day. You can see Tony's musings. Some of the best commentary that you're going to see is from Tony Defio, and I can honestly say that. I was so excited when I got a chance to meet him a few years ago and talk to him because I read his stuff for a long time, and I was like, this guy's just good. We have look, that head's getting bigger. Dave Schofield, the new editor, is doing a great job putting everything together. You will see, tons and tons of articles each and every day, not just from Dave, but from Jeffrey, from Mike, from Flip, from Tony, even myself. If I missed anybody, I do apologize. I'm just rolling through real quick. And remember, our family of podcasts here, not just this show. We have the Steeler Q&A today, which is this show. But then tomorrow, you're going to have the Stat Geek, a couple shows with the brothers Sco. Rich and Dave Schofield do those shows. Really good information there. Then on Wednesday night, you're going to have The Standard is the Standard. It is back with Lance Williams, and it's going to be some rotating partners with Lance. I am going to be on that show this week, and then on the preview, it's going to be Dave Schofield, myself, and Michael Beck, who you heard yesterday and saw yesterday on the Homer and the Hater show. Lance returns on Fridays. Lance is there with Yeah, I Said It, a great show where he's very vociferous about what he has to say. I love Yeah, I Said It. It's emphatic. Then on Saturday, Steelers Brunch with Tony and the Homer and the Hater show once again, which will be Lance Williams and myself. Now that I'm in the Homer role as far as replacing Jeff Hartman in that role, Felicia even mentioned yesterday that we got to change the name of that. So she had a great idea, Mr. 2 a.m. and the Wingman. But we'll talk about that, and maybe I could fall into that Homer role. Today, I'm definitely going to be a Homer, as you know. Brighton Barnes asks, is Michael Beck new? Michael's been with the He's been with us for a while. As far as writing goes, he's the new deputy editor of Behind the Steel Curtain. He has had audio podcast, and his very first it's called the Live Mic, and his very first one was Chase Claypool, because Michael grew up and played football against and in the same league as Chase Claypool in British Columbia. And so, Michael Beck has also secured some more guests that are coming up. We're going to have some more Steeler guests, current and retired players that we should see over the next few weeks, whether it be just on the audio platform, or we're trying to get them on the YouTube platform as well. But really exciting things coming up here. So that's what's going on. But the big question, it's Steeler Q&A. And I know I raised some eyebrows when I wrote that, and I knew it was going to happen. Ryan Switzer can make the Steeler roster on his own merit. So what does that mean? That means that his friendship with Ben Roethlisberger is not going to matter. He's going to earn a spot. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, and I have no problem with that. That's what we do. We disagree friendly. We're your sports bar. That's what we are. It's a chance to argue. Tony, what are your thoughts on Ryan Switzer?
Well, if you would ask me this a year ago, I probably would have been more positive. But based on last year, I don't know right now. And also, it's maybe a numbers thing, too, because of the top four guys now with the aforementioned Chase Claypool, the new draft picks. That's four guys right there. They're going to make the team because they're not going to cut, obviously, Juju, James Washington, Deontay Johnson or Claypool. So it's just a matter of how much do they like Deion Kane? Is he gonna show out this summer? If he does, then there's five right there. And then it's just a matter of do they keep six? Do they keep six receivers? And if they do, then I think he has a really good chance. As far as punt returns and stuff like that, I think Deontay Johnson's the guy there too. So it's gonna be a little more difficult for him this year. But at the same time, he does have Ben as in his corner, and he, like a lot of people, he was compromised last year by the lack of Ben. So, maybe he can make a comeback this summer in training camp.
Now, I know if Lance Williams was on the show, he would definitely disagree with me on this, but this is where I'm going with this. I have a few facts to go ahead and back me up on this. So the reason I'm saying that Ryan Switzer is going to make this team on his own merit, he was traded to this team for a fourth rounder on his own merit. The thing about him is when he first came to the Pittsburgh Steelers back in 2018, there was a lot of excitement because you didn't have a guy returning kicks. You didn't have a guy returning punts. And when he first started returning punts and kicks, we called him the jitterbug or a water bug back there. He was jumping all around and he was gaining some yards. And if you look at the stats kind of back it up. So I'm wondering with this, what happened from year one to year two? So definitely what happened is I'm wondering if they told him to be more conservative as far as the return game goes. Now, one thing that you could bank on for years, for I would say about maybe 15 years, they liked more steady hands on the kickoff team and on the punt return team. And so the reason I'm saying this, do you remember who was the kick returner back in the Super Bowl in 2008 when the Steelers beat the Arizona Cardinals? Who was the main kick return man?
I believe it was Richard Huntley was returning kicks, and then the punts they would often put Moalde Moore back there for, like you said, for the short hands, and he would often just call for fair catches.
It was not Richard Huntley. Zach Eisman says Stephon Logan. Logan was actually here only 1 year. It wasn't Randall L. either. He wasn't back yet. It's a guy. The guy actually scored a touchdown in that Super Bowl. Gary Russell, number 33.
I feel so silly. I was thinking that's who I was thinking of, but I got the name wrong by a decade. Richard Huntley,
and yet the same number.
Yeah, he played in 2000. That's the off season.
You had the exact same number. This guy was a big man. He went about 230.
Yeah.
Do you also remember the days of Najee, the dump truck Davenport?
Oh,
Him,
yes.
he was returning kicks.
Right.
You had a lot of guys returning kicks that were more sure-handed instead of burners on this team. I think I could honestly tell you the last burners would be Stefan Logan and maybe Alan Rossum, but Alan Rossum was a little older as well too, but he still had some speed, and he returned one for the Steelers as well.
Right.
So that's what I'm thinking, that they still might consider him a sure-handed alternative to returning kicks and returning punts. Because there's also the thing that why Antonio Brown was the return man for so long, especially on punts? It's because he was the only alternative, Tony. Would you agree with me on that?
For the longest time, he was. I remember we would talk about it every offseason, that they had to find a guy to replace him because he was just so valuable as a receiver. He was there was a time there when he was the best receiver in the NFL, and he was also returning punts for the Steelers. So they eventually replaced him with Eli Rogers, although he wasn't nearly as dangerous. But yeah, they didn't have an alternative for the longest time.
Eli Rogers was not effective as a return man. He really was not. But he was a little more. He had surer hands, but they had to go away from Eli Rogers and bring back Antonio Brown, and that's something they just did not want to do. So when they brought Ryan Switzer in, they felt like they had that guy. And I am wondering at this point if they still think he's that guy, and they're not really worried about the return game as much, but just not turning it over. Because you're not going to get a turnover very often from a guy like Ryan Switzer. He does not really put it on the ground.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He might be the new, when it comes to returning punts, maybe the guy they send back there when a sort of a veteran guy. Now he's been in the league for a few years. Somebody they throw back there when they want to make sure they secure the ball and not worry about advancing it.
Because if they wanted to have an electric return man, they would have kept Deontay Spencer. They would have found a way to keep him last year.
Right.
But they went in the direction, and they started the season not with Deontay Johnson, but with Ryan Switzer. Ryan Switzer did get hurt. Now, the nickname. They call him Mr. Electric Football because he doesn't move around a whole heck of a lot. But something happened there. He was moving around quite a bit in 2018. Did somebody tell him just to be conservative with it? Or did something happen? Let's look at these stats. Tony, I'm going to bring these up right here. If you look at his punt returns, he had 252 punt return yards, 30 returns, and he averaged 8.4 yards. Now, he only had 29 on 8 returns last year, but the average is what you really need to look at. And the average was 3.6. The year before in Dallas, his rookie year in Dallas, it was 8.8.
Right.
So nothing really changed until 2019. And a young player, this guy's a young player. So why did that change? On kickoff returns as well, I mean, he went from 25.0 in 2017 to 18.4. Not a dramatic jump, not a dramatic change, but I'm thinking there's somebody in the organization wants him to just hold on to the ball and get the ball in the hands of Ben Roethlisberger or whoever the Steeler quarterback is. That includes last year. Are you smelling something there, Tony? Are you thinking that is it just my brain burning, or am I onto something here?
Well, when you matched his 2018 numbers with his numbers when he was with Dallas, 8.8 or 8.4, maybe last year it was more, since the defense was so dominant and they were so compromised at the quarterback position after the first couple games. They had the younger guys in there, Mason and Devlin Duck Hodges. Maybe he was getting the orders from Mike Tomlin or Danny Smith to just be cautious, because you don't want to make a critical mistake. You don't want to turn the ball over deep. Just, you have a great defense. Let the defense keep you in the game and try to win it at the end. So it could have been general line of thinking last year when it came to returning punts.
Well, let's talk about his receiving game as well. Now, you saw in that opening game against New England last year, Ben Roethlisberger went to him a lot. He didn't move that much. He was that game was a mess.
Right.
That game was rough all the way around. But he really wasn't. He was more of a possession guy. He doesn't drop the ball. He catches it, doesn't move that much, but he moved more the year before. So last year, he averaged 3.4 yards per reception. That is 50% less than what he averaged the year before at 7.0. So something happened. Was it the quarterback change? But he wasn't moving much in game 1 and game 2 with Ben. So something was going on. Maybe he was still hurt. But and Dennis Sheridan, one of our great contributors, I love this. I don't think it's fair to compare anyone's stats from last year. You know, I agree with you on the receptions. That's what I'm saying, because everything is completely. We were defending Juju yesterday. You know, we were defending Juju because you can't compare his stats from the year before. But what I'm saying, even with Ben, Dennis, he was not moving that much. So I was wondering if this is direction that he's getting, because you can't. I mean, you can compare punt returns. It's fair to say that you can go ahead, compare the difference of punt returns and kickoff returns. And the reason you can do that is because you don't have a quarterback throwing to you. So that's what we can compare. But you're right. On the receptions, something went down, but he does have the ability. So that backs up everything we're saying, that he could make this team on his own merit, because nobody really disliked him until 2019. Nobody wanted him gone. Now, this entire offseason, everybody wants him gone. And I don't think he's that bad. I don't think you want him to be the number one guy, which he's not going to be. But what you do want out of Ryan Switzer is someone that could catch the ball on 3rd and 2 and advance the sticks, just to get another 4 downs. Tony, what are your thoughts there? Where does Ryan Switzer fit in on this offense? I think he fits in, but where?
Well, one way of looking at it is injuries are inevitable, right? So if one of those the top 4 guys goes down, then who would you rather have in there? An unknown, or somebody who Ben's comfortable with, who you can go to as a slot receiver for a game, or somebody you can bring in at 5 receiver sets. So if you look at it that way, he has been around the league. He's not an older veteran, but he is a veteran now. I guess it's his 4th year or 5th year. So that's somebody who's been around. It's his 3rd year with the Steelers now. He knows the system. So at the very least, he's a dependable guy that you can bring in if somebody else gets hurt, or if one of the younger guys is having trouble, learning the system with the details, as Mike Tomlin would say.
So that's what we're looking at with Ryan Switzer. For as much as everybody does not, a lot of people disagree. I don't want to say everybody, because there's people actually agreeing on here. You want him to go ahead and advance the chains. You want him to help out. But if he's your number one option, like he was against New England last year, you're going to be in trouble. Kriakis says it, safety valve for Ben. No other quarterback threw to him. And that's the thing. If you have a safety valve, but you've got to make sure that you're throwing it to him, that he's advancing the chains. Right. That's it. If you're going to throw him short, he might not be getting there. So you got to use him right. But if you use this guy right, you can have another weapon to be very valuable. Now, don't really want to say weapon, but you're going to have a guy that is going to be a nice piece of the puzzle with everybody else you have. Because look, it's going to be hard to double guys here, Tony. It just really is.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, like they're saying. Excuse me, I'm having technical difficulties. But as they're saying, a safety valve out of the backfield, or not out of the backfield, but on maybe third and short, somebody who can get to the sticks, a 5-yard out over the middle, something like that. So from that perspective, I mean, they're gonna have to find a role for him if he makes the team. I know that. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I don't think they're just going to keep him on the roster and then have him just sit on the sidelines all year. He's going to have a role somewhere, whether it's, as we talked about, the short-handed punt returner or the slot receiver for Ben on third down, something like that.
So I messed up. I really messed up, and this is why. Because I should have saved this topic for next week's Homer and the Hater, my Sunday show with Lance Williams. The electronic football is not a quality receiver. It's just something we're always going to disagree on. But here's the thing, and Lance, and I told you at the beginning that Lance was going to disagree with me if he was on here, and I'm glad, Lance, I'm glad to have you on here. Here's the thing. You could make this guy work as a piece of the puzzle, and as long as you have those other guys and you're not using him as a number one weapon like they did against New England last year, you're going to get something good out of Ryan Switzer, and it's going to equate to a W if he is used correctly. And that's the bottom line. Somebody said that he's a generic player. He's someone called him, just like vanilla. But I think vanilla is a great flavor, by the way. So I don't know.
Didn't he line up in the backfield too? A lot over his first 2 years here. I think I remember seeing him line up in the backfield. So I mean, not that he would get handoffs necessarily, but as a safety valve out of the backfield, that might be a role for him as opposed to a running back. Because you would think he would have surer hands than your typical running back.
That's definitely it. But there's one thing we want to talk about, and we'll talk about this next. And that is, what we're going to talk about is Robert Sasovitz brings this up. He says Deontay is an all-pro punt returner, which he was, second-team all-pro. And now, here's the thing. I would rather see Deontay Johnson as my punt returner for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But there's your double-edged sword. Here's the rub. He gets hurt. He's gone. You lose one of your top weapons at wide receiver. And we talked about that before when we were talking about Antonio Brown. So we're talking about Antonio Brown, how I had a buddy. Every time Antonio Brown was back to field a punt, he was like, I hate that they do this. I hate it. I hate it. And, I get it, but they were trying to keep him healthy. And are they going to do the same thing with Deontay Johnson, Tony?
I don't think so right away. I think Mike Tomlin likes to let his young guys earn it a little bit before he gives them that preferential treatment. With the exception, maybe I think Le'Veon Bell's the only young guy I remember him really giving that kind of treatment to early on. But I think they're gonna make him earn that right away. But the great thing about Deontay Johnson is he is a weapon right now, and that I think that's exciting. And as far as Ryan Switzer, if he does make the team, it's going to have to be on merit. Otherwise they're going to be tying themselves in knots trying to find a role for him. So, if he is the fourth or fifth receiver on most Sundays, and if he is that guy they send back there, to make the fair catch when they don't want to have a costly turnover, then I'm okay with that. But to your point, I don't know why there was why they were telling him to be cautious last year, because if you remember 2018, especially the first game against the Browns, I was actually impressed by what he was able to do on punt returns. I think kickoff returns too in that game. So I don't know what happened last year in that regard, because it shouldn't, unless there was some kind of injury that we are not aware of.
I just don't understand how his production on returns goes down 50%. So that's just something that miffs me and makes me wonder if it's just like, hey, just fill the punt, get the offense out on the field and don't worry about it. Lance, he's Giant Eagle brand cornflakes. Oh my gosh, Lance, I love it. You know what? There's just some things we're not going to agree on, so that's what's going to make our show so much better when I'm teaming up with Lance as well. I'm this guy. I'm thinking that, and Lance is asking, who do you take off the field for Switzer to get snaps? There's packages, and you have them. You don't. When you have this much talent, and I'm including Switzer in that talent, and we're about to talk about the receivers that are going to make this team too. But when you throw in 4 talented receivers, throw in Switzer on top of that, then throw in the fact that you have a fullback now that could catch the ball in the backfield in Derek Watt, and you have 2 very good pass catching tight ends. Production stats are going to go down all the way around, but it's how you use them. Would you rather have 1,000-yard receivers? We talked about this yesterday. A bunch of 1,000-yard receivers, maybe 2,000-yard receivers, and nobody else contributing? Or would you like to have a lot having very good numbers and weapons all over the field that nobody could be double covered? And that's what is happening here. Now, if you have him, if you're in a situation where you could sneak Switzer to convert a 3rd and 3 or a 3rd and 2 or something and sneak him on the field when they're worried about everybody else, he's going to catch the ball. So that's the bottom line. It's how he's used. Last year was an aberration all the way around. 2019 was crazy. Because your offensive coordinator was on the shelf. And I know, Tony, you might disagree with me if after listening to your show that there was no secret offensive coordinator, but still, that's something we'll kind of disagree on. But you had the fact that Ben Roethlisberger wasn't out there. There was no connection and there was no consistency. This year, Ben stays healthy. We've been talking about that ever since he went down. So that's it. And Dennis agrees with me. And I love when Dennis agrees with me. I agree with Brian on that. Let's give defense fits. And you really can. You don't have to be sexy to be effective. I've proved that in my lifetime. I'm not sexy. I could be effective. But what I'm saying is you don't have to be marquee to make it happen. And the Steelers are going to have some guys on that team that
Hey, Twitter tells me that all the time. So I know what you mean, Brian.
And I tell you what, we got an award. First of all, I'm going to bring this up. Atheos B. Sapien says this is definitely a homer and homer show. Imagine trying to find a spot for a receiver on the roster because he's friends with the QB. I still think he's going to do it. But here's the award we're going to get. I Push Hard gives us an award. Lamest topic ever. Woohoo!
Wow.
If you got ever next to it,
right,
you're looking pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
Lamest topic ever. Well,
and 98671X says he averages 3.4 yards a catch. I'll take that 3.4 yards on a 3rd and 3. But he was also averaging 8 yards a catch the year before. So that's you definitely have somebody that can. We're not always going to agree, and I love it. But here's the thing. He could be used, and if he's used right, you're going to love him at some point in 2020 if this is a successful team. And I really think that he could be helpful to this team. So we'll just leave it at that. But let's look at the wide receivers now. I'm still going to agree that he is still your 5th option on this team. Because number 1, of course, well, let me hear it from you, Tony. Who's number 1 in this stable?
Oh, it's Juju. I think we have to respect what he did the first 2 years with Ben in there. Of course, he had AB, which would benefit anybody, but still, I think he earned the right to be the number 1. And as we talked about before, he did draw a lot of double coverage last year, and of course, he had the quarterback issues like they all did on offense, and of course, he had injuries that he had to battle through. So, I think he's still number 1.
So I'm I'm getting these weird pop-ups ever since I started doing the pop. So if you saw my face right now, it wasn't the live chat. I just get this really weird.
I thought it was I push hard because he had a really aggressive answer there.
Hey, you know what? I respect I push hard for coming in on the show, and I might have joked about him calling us winning the award, but hey, any topic, any opinion, I respect. So thank you for coming in, and I don't have a problem with it. But yeah, let's look at everybody else. So number 2, people are throwing in DJ. Deontay Johnson is your clear number 2. I think if we're looking at it that way. Where do we go 3 and 4?
I think right now, I think you have to give that role to James Washington. But then again, as you said, it's all about the packages too. Like who's the slot on a certain play, who's the X, who's the Y, or is that Z? I'm not. But yeah, I think it's all about packages. But I think James Washington, based on experience and how he made the leap from his rookie year to last year, I think he's your number 3 right now.
So Switzer, is he competing for a job, or does he have a job, Tony Defeo?
I think he's competing for a job right now. I don't think it's set in stone, because I think they like Deion Kane. I think he's somebody that they're going to be high on, and they're gonna be hopeful that he can show them something this summer. But again, I think having Ben in his corner is gonna help when it comes to, it's like the end of or I guess towards the end of training camp and Invincible, when they were deciding who are they going to keep, Vince Papale or the other guy, and it was close. I think having somebody in your corner as with the status of Ben Roethlisberger is going to help him. And in the movie's case, it was the fake Dick Vermeil, but in this case, it'll be the real Big Ben.
The fake Dick Vermeil. Greg Kinnear is nobody's football coach. I've got a problem with that movie. I really like that movie, but when I found out that he played in the World Football League before that whole thing, he had pro football experience. I'm like, you've ruined it for me. I know. The truth.
I didn't realize that either. I thought he was straight up off the street, just playing hard touch football. But no, he had some pretty decent experience.
Okay, hard touch football. I mean, not just touch football, it's hard touch football. All right, I want to ask the live chat this, and I'm going to ask you first, Tony. Is this the best potential receiving core, and I'm including the tight ends, that the Steelers have had in the last 30 years?
Well, I think they had some really good ones, and I think the 2015 group was really good with Ben and Martavis, and I think Wheaton was really good at certain stages, and I'm probably missing somebody there, but I think that group was pretty good, and I think the group that they had in the mid 90s when they went to Super Bowl 30, when Chan Gailey was doing the 5 wide as the secret offensive coordinator. I think he really was that year. I think that was really good. But I think this one is like that. It can be like that 95, because there really wasn't a standout. I think Yancey Thigpen was your number 1, but he wasn't really an all-pro number 1. And I think this receiving core can be like that. It could be 4 or 5 deep and be really solid all the way across the board.
I tell you what, I think this is a very talented group if they all stay healthy, which is a huge if. But even if you have somebody go down, you have a lot to go ahead and move in there. It's not a situation where you're looking at 2016. And 2016, somebody mentioned that they really liked 2017, and that was a good group there. But 2016 was a group at the end. Your number 2 guy was number 83, and we're not talking Heath Miller. Do you remember that guy? Do you remember the guy I'm talking about?
I remember he did catch the game-winning pass in overtime in the Landry Jones Bowl at the end of the year. But other than that, yeah, he was. I mean, he did pretty good for somebody who didn't have a really high pedigree, but that he wasn't a good number 2 receiver to have in the AFC Championship game, which is what he was because of all the injuries.
What was his name, Tony?
Oh gosh, I don't remember. I know it was number 83, but I can't remember.
You
his name.
Lost it. And here's the thing: I lost it too, and I was just talking about him earlier.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Someone's gonna bail me out on the live chat.
Help us out, live chat.
Yeah, I hate when I do that. There's so much going in this brain here, and it's gonna come to me in a second, and I'm just like, I just completely lost it. But anyways, I think this is a talented group. So there, it wasn't Swede. Gosh,
No.
how am I losing
What the heck?
this?
That
Uh
poor guy. We can't think of it. Hamilton. There you go.
Kobe
Yes.
Hamilton. That's who I wanted.
Ah,
That's what I was saying. Yeah,
got that in a million years.
and how did I forget that? I've just talked about him. That's the problem. So, Vance and Ebron, we were talking about this yesterday on the show. Depressed Steeler fan brings them up. Is a great tight end duo. You had a great tight end duo in 2000, I believe it was 17, with Jesse James and Vance McDonald together. They were nearly 1,000-yard receiving option if you combine their stats and combine their catches. So you had a really good you had a really good tight end duo there. I think you have a really good tight end duo here. And when I'm talking about stats, you don't have to have one guy go off. If both of them are really, really good and you have that 1,000-yard tight end out of two guys, I'm taking it.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying about number 3 and number 4 in this roster. I'm taking it. I'm taking those guys. If they could all have really good numbers, then you're in good shape.
Right.
So, and I think they have they're loading Ben with targets. Plenty of targets. And these guys will catch those targets. May have a drop here and there, but not as many as you think. Because you have a guy in Ebron that's caught 13. What's the Steeler record for touchdown? When I say 13 touchdown catches back in 2018. What's the record, Tony, for a Pittsburgh Steeler tight end? How many touchdown passes?
I don't know. Was it Eric Green?
It's Heath.
Heath, okay.
How many do you think Heath had?
I'm going to say 8.
8 was his best.
Okay.
So when he pulled in 8 touchdown passes, that's the best. And no one will ever say that Heath Miller was a pedestrian tight end in Pittsburgh. Right. In fact, he ranks, a lot of people don't realize this. He's in the top 10, and if I'm not mistaken, he's number 8 as far as tight ends in NFL history with receptions. Right. He's 8th overall, and that's pretty good. And a lot of people don't think about that. But 8 is the record. Robert's saying 70. I was talking single season though. Yeah. If you get 70 in one single season, that would be just absolutely amazing. I do that in my dreams and on I don't want to say Madden because I don't play Madden, but on Techno Football. Remember Tecmo Bowl?
Oh, we played it every weekend for years in the early 90s. Rod Woodson was unstoppable.
Rod Woodson was amazing in that game. You weren't kidding. But I did real well with Bam Morris too.
Oh, wow.
Bam was tough. Bam was just running over people. Reginald Rivers brings up Benny Cunningham as a very good tight end. Somebody's bringing up Eric Green. I tell you what, tight end is my favorite position. Mark Bruner.
He was more of a blocker.
Yeah. I'm probably putting Mark Bruner. He was a number one pick for the Steelers in 1995. I'm probably going to put Bruner maybe around 5 or 6. If you're going, hey, live chat, help me out with this. Let's do this. Let's rank them. Number 1, Heath. We're going to have to say Heath. Are we going Eric Green number 2?
Oh yeah, I think so. As far as true ability, he was ahead of his time in a lot of ways. He was Gronk before Gronk. He just didn't. He wasn't in the best situation in the late, I guess the early 90s here. So, but he was really good. Yeah, I'd say Heath, and who else would it be other than Benny Cunningham?
I've got one. I have got one.
The guy Grossman from the Super Bowl years.
It's not him. He's good. Mike Mularkey. I'm going to put Mike Mularkey at. What about Benny at number 3? I'll put
LB
Mike
Nickel.
Malarkey at number 4. Late
LB
80s.
Nickel had the as far as overall though, I think LB Nickel had the yardage record for a while until Heath took
Yeah,
over.
LB was pretty good. I tend to go 1969 when Joe Green came in and Chuck Noll came in and on. And then you talk about the merger in 1970. That's kind of where I look at it. Ladarius Green would have been good if he was healthy. He's right in the we could talk about him with Senquez Golson.
Right.
Jeremy Newman, he was there.
Yeah.
Robert says Bam Morris could carry your dope for you. That's good. Matt Spaeth.
Wrong position.
Yeah, so Matt Spaeth, guys like Spaeth and Tuman, they're not your sexy players, but they were in there to block and they were effective and they were really good. So here's one guy who was the Steeler tight end, and it was not Mark Bruner in the Super Bowl, because Mark Bruner got hurt after 9 or 10 games his rookie season. But in the Super Bowl 30, who was your tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Dallas Cowboys?
Gosh.
Oh, wow. Bry 160701 gave me a Preston Gothard. Not for that answer.
Wasn't Adrian Cooper, was it?
Wasn't Adrian Cooper, no.
He was gone by then, I think. Yeah.
He was this guy I'm talking about is a former Kansas City Chief. Let's see if the live chat can give me this guy without looking him up.
I know who you mean. I can't think of the name though, but I know exactly who you mean.
McGee.
I know now.
You got him?
Jonathan Hayes.
Jonathan Hayes.
Woo!
Number 85, Jonathan Hayes.
I'm sorry.
Matt Roberts.
I'm sorry.
Matt Roberts says we don't make a Super Bowl without Spaeth. That's what I'm trying to say all along. When we look at a 53-man roster, that 53rd guy is still going to need to be effective. Mm-hmm. And if Ryan Switzer is your 53rd guy, or your tight end, like a Preston Gothard or a Matt Spaeth, is going to be, it could come up big. Who's one guy that came up huge in the playoffs for the Steelers with now this guy ended up being a big name, but he had to catch a ball on his helmet. And if we're going back in time to 2010, he became a big name, but no one expected Antonio Brown to bail them out with a huge catch late in the playoff game.
Right.
At that time, you didn't. Now we know then, but at the time you're like, wow, everybody's contributing. And that's the thing. And that goes back to everything that I'm going to say from the beginning, talking about Ryan Switzer. There's a role, and there's a role for everybody. And if you could be a piece of a 53-man puzzle and you're the one that makes it all complete, there you go. Reginald Rivers asked, what number did Jonathan Hayes wear? He wore number 85. And speaking of which, if you check out on the over the next month, if you check out on the blog site behind the steelcurtain.com, you're going to see my expose on the best numbers in Steeler history. And they're not going to, I'm not talking about 12. I'm not talking about 58. I'm talking about numbers that over time have been most effective. So we did honorable mention the other day. We're on, I think, number 24, not the number 24, but the 24th best stable of numbers hit today. So check that out too. But lots of good stuff coming up on the show and the blog site. If you want to talk numbers and have fun with that, check it out. So Tony, my question to you is we've looked at the receivers. There's two that we didn't really mention. We talked about really Switzer as a number 5. If there's a 6th spot and you have guys like Deion Kane, and Deion Kane might be fighting for that 5th spot, but you have Deion Kane and you have a guy from Penn State that also played in the XFL, Saeed Blacknell. Are you looking at these guys shocking the world, and could they unseat a guy like Switzer?
I mean, I think for sure Deion Kane could. Yeah, I think he has really great potential. I was actually for my show the other day, I was doing some looking at Jacoby Brissett's highlights, and Kane made a few plays for the Colts last year before I guess he was released and signed to the practice squad, and then he came here, and then he had a few here. So I think he definitely has a chance, and the other guy played in the XFL, so I mean he has some recent experience. So yeah, I mean I think the door is open for either one of those guys to show out and beat out a Switzer. But then again, if they keep 6, I guess it really won't matter all that much. It would just be about who. There wouldn't be really a 5th or a 6th. It'd just be about what packages and what role that they have on the team.
So I appreciate you saying that. This is the Steeler Q&A, so I want to throw it out to the live chat in the next 10 minutes with not too much time left. Jason Medley asks, haven't seen tape on Blacknell. Is he good? He's tall. He's going to definitely be battling Kane for a position on this team. He's tall. He has some ability. Haven't seen a lot on him, but what I saw, I like. I still like Deion Kane a whole heck of a lot too. That's going to be a fun battle. You're definitely in good hands with this receiving stable. You've got, like I was talking about earlier, I feel like you have a pretty deep stable and a lot of options. Jonas Wedlick, and I believe Jonas was talking earlier that he is from Germany, planning on very first trip to the U.S. What is your favorite seat, row, view at Heinz Field? Well, this is what I'm going to say on that. Tony, you've been to a few games over the last couple of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you typically sit? I sit in the end zone mostly, and I don't like being up high. I don't, because there are some bleacher seats in the end zone that end up being bleacher, and I'm just not comfortable with it. I don't think I agree with Cree. There's not really a bad seat in the house. I kind of like the closed end zone though.
I like section 100. I want to say a good friend of mine, Greg Stryker. He actually does a lot of work for Steeler Nation. Anyway, he took me to a game a couple years ago, and they were really good seats. And another friend of mine, he has similar seats. I think section 100 is really good. It's not exactly the 50-yard line, but it's low. It's fairly low, but not so low that you can't see, and it's around the 30 to 35-yard line. I think that's a pretty good spot.
Okay, I tried with I Push Hard. Why are we discussing Switzer? I'm out of here. We do about 8-9 shows a week, and he is on the team. So I'm sorry we could not help you with all your needs, but please have a good day. Bry 160701, another Brian, I guess. If Jesse James would get cut, would they bring him back? I'd say no, just because of who they have right now. Now, if it's a situation next year, I don't think Vance McDonald is going to be on this team next year. So if that's the case, maybe they would look at him next year to pair with Ebron, but I do not expect it now. Tony, what do you think?
No, and I think when he signed with the Lions last year, $11 million was guaranteed. So that's a lot of money to cut a guy in his second year. So I don't think he's going to be cut this year. But like you said, if Vance McDonald departs next year, and maybe Eric Ebron is the number one, then you would definitely need a solid number two, and that's Jesse James. He's definitely he would. I could see him coming back a la Matt Spaeth a few years ago. He came back a second time.
Cree asks, Brian and Tony, do you actually think they will use Switzer right this year? I personally don't. That's up to Ben. And if Ben could use him right, they did not use him right last year, and he was hurt. But that's I will say this about Switzer, the entire thing. I will eat my words if I'm wrong, and I will say it on the show, and I'll say, hey, you guys were right. but I think Ben knows how to use him more than anybody, and they do have that rapport. So there you go. A follow up to that is Donald Nolan. What stats would Switzer need to put up for everyone to accept him as a backup wide receiver or returner? Tony, what do you think? What would we need from him? You at least need a touchdown.
Yeah, I'd say for him if he's going to have a role in the offense and somebody that Ben wants to go to from time to time, I think it would have to be he would have to get a lot of he would have to be one of their leaders on picking up third downs, like third down receptions. It doesn't have to be a lot of catches, 15, 20, but if a lot of those catches are critical catches, then I think that would be something that I think would give him a valuable role for the team. But again, like I said, they can't just keep him on there because he's Ben's guy and try to twist themselves in knots to make to get him the ball. He has to do it on merit.
That's absolutely true. Dallas Quinley, another great contributor to the show. Switzer sounds like a candy bar. By the way, congratulations to Ryan Switzer. He and his wife welcomed a child last week too, and that's wonderful. And one of the things that does really annoy me when any Steeler has great news, then you look in the comments, and you had an article about this last year. But you look in the comments, and someone's saying, "Well, why don't they focus on football instead of?" It's like, yeah, come on, give the guy a break. Congratulations, though. That's awesome. I love it, and I just read on the website yesterday on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com that Derek Watt is welcoming another child too. I believe it's second. And the great thing about that is that's something more for TJ and JJ to fight over, because they fight over showering that kid with unclely love, if that's even a word. But they compete to be the favorite uncle, and that's pretty awesome. Steelers 33 says my season tickets are 139J. Save a seat for me, Steeler 33. I'll come hang out with you. Liked Vanek. Matt Roberts says liked Vanek. Why didn't they use him more? Are we talking about Vance? Is that a typo? I'm not making fun of you. I'm just I think you're talking about Vance there. Ben Roethlisberger knows how to use Vance McDonald, and Vance McDonald will be effective as long as Ben's there as well, too. It looked like Mason Rudolph was going to use the heck out of him last year when he came in that Seattle game. Vance had a great game in week 2 in that Seattle game. It's just I think when Ben was gone last year, nobody really knew what to do, including the offensive coordinator, which is just is kind of ridiculous. But the bottom line to it is they got to use their weapons, and Ben knows how to use some of these guys right, so you can really count on that. As Bry equals Brian, that's what I thought. Bryce 160701 says, yeah, a lot of my friends call me Bry too. No one calls me Brian on this show. It's just I became bad. And Brian, if you're like me, growing up in the 80s, you could never get something. Everybody spelled your name wrong, Brian. Bryan Adams made it cooler to be Brian, with his Summer of '69 and that Reckless album, and it made it a whole lot cooler. So we're gonna get ready to wrap up everything here. Tony, we cannot do it without all these folks on the show. And we really appreciate everybody coming in with their opinions. I realize we're talking about Ryan Switzer. I'm hoping it, and I think all of you would agree with me that I'm hoping that I'm right and you're wrong in this one. But if I'm wrong, I'll say it. But wouldn't it be great if he came up huge in a big way? Matt Roberts said, sorry, I meant Vanette. And
He's
That's
fine.
no problem there. I just wasn't computing on that. The Steelers have a hard time, Tony. Would you agree, when they bring somebody in late in the preseason or early in the season, of peppering them in, and it's almost like they need a full preseason. We saw that with Vance McDonald.
Yeah.
We saw that with even Switzer when he first came in. They need to have that rapport, and it seems like newcomers, if they don't have a full training camp, just don't get all the action that you think they would. Vanette ended up leaving. He didn't like the way he was used either. He didn't like the way he was used in Seattle either. I hope he likes the way he's used in Denver. We'll just see. But once again, we're about to wrap things up. Thank you, everybody. We can't do it without the live chat. We love you all. Whether you agree or disagree with me, whether you think it's the worst topic ever, you still came in and checked it out. And we had a lot of fun with it. So I appreciate it. It's always good to agree to disagree sometimes. And we can't do these shows without you. And we really appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you so much. Be sure to like the show. Be sure to tell a friend. Tony, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic. A lot of people may not think it's sexy, but sometimes when we talk about the quote unquote sexy stuff, people don't like that either. So it's a long off season, and these are all questions that are going to have to be answered. So what's wrong with talking about them? So I thought it was a pretty good topic, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Ryan Switzer.
And anybody has topic suggestions, I mean, I'm always scratching my head trying to figure out what to talk about. So,
Right.
yeah, let me know too. But hey, we appreciate all of you. And whether you're number 1 on the roster, you're number 53, the bottom line, you're important to Steeler Nation. And we appreciate all of you. And we appreciate everybody in the live chat as well. So, Tony, I appreciate you. Take us out, my friend.
No, you have the first part.
All right. I guess that is my job. Yeah. So for Tony Defio, my name is Brian Anthony Davis. Thank you so much for being here. And to quote the great Rowdy Roddy Piper, just when you think you've got all the answers,
we keep changing the questions.
All right. Good night, my friends. We'll see you next week.